Hi. Lord Rothschild famously said, "Achetez sur les canons, vendez sur les clarions." That is, buy on the sound of war guns, sell on the sound of victory trumpets. Which means, when everyone else panics, buy. When all are euphoric, sell. Can it be done? Yes, in theory. In practice, of course, it is very hard, because when everyone else's lizard brain goes into hiding in a panic, so does yours. So it's hard to act. But does it work, buying when wars start? Not always, if you look at the historical record. Lord Rothschild allegedly said it about Waterloo, which was in 1815, when it did work. But I think we better look back only 80 years, which is the average age of the oldest market player not yet suffering from memory loss. The executive summary is this. In the last 80 years, this rule worked only partly. In 1943, the depth of World War II, just before the Battle of Midway in the Pacific, the market bottomed. Warren Buffett mentioned it as an example of buying when things look darkest. Then there was Vietnam, which started with the Gulf of Tonkin incident, 1964. Not a good time to buy. And it only became worse, both in the war and in the market. The same 9 years later, October 1973, when the Middle East erupted in a war and the Arabs applied the oil embargo against the West. That too was not a good time to buy. The market bottomed only in 1982, 7 years later. But in 1982, when Hezbollah killed 182 Marines in Beirut, and Israel invaded Lebanon and bombed the Iraqi nuclear reactors, the market bottomed. Same as it did in January 1991, when the first Gulf War erupted. I was in the stock market then, mid-career, so I recall that on January 14, the first Tomahawks left the US destroyers in the Gulf, and the market bottomed a day later, January 15. So yes, Rothschild's rule of buying on the sound of guns worked in 91, but it didn't work in September 11, 2001, as the Twin Towers fell and America launched the war on terror by attacking Tora Bora in Afghanistan. The market stayed tanked for 2 years until 2003. So no, that rule did not work in 2001 either. What was the next war? In 2014, Putin invaded Crimea. The market shrugged it off and kept on going, but there was no bottom before, just a continuation. However, last year, 2021, Putin launched a war in Ukraine. Not a good time to buy, the market tanked and stayed tanked. Well now, Putin just launched his war's second stage by threatening to nuke the Ukrainian winners. Is this a sign to buy? Based on the 50-50 records of the past 80 years, maybe, maybe not. One new factor is that the Americans just said that if Vlad nukes anything, they would respond catastrophically. Like how catastrophically? Well, they pretty much spelled it out via tame generals speaking before various failing networks. The most credible hint was that the Americans would give the Europeans the okay to destroy the Russians' Black Sea Fleet in 24 hours, and perhaps also some ships in the Mediterranean, maybe. Will they really? At this point, paradoxically, it comes to the scenario of blazing saddles, when the hero points a gun at its own head and says, "One more move and this baby gets it." Why does this come to mind? Because at this stage, Russia's viability as a state is an American national security interest. For two simple reasons. First, the world can't do without Russia's resources. Russian Arctic oil is about to be frozen out and the pipes crack if it doesn't start moving soon. So it would be 5 or 10 years before it can be restored, perhaps more, because today there are no foreign workers to do it, only Russians. And yet the world needs oil and the US needs the world to keep buying its bonds. But second, the US doesn't want Russia to be totally failed state, only partly failed. If Russia becomes Syria with nukes, China will move in and make Russia into a complete vassal. And then, like the Death Star, Xi Jinping, who is crazier and wilder than Putin, becomes greater and meaner and riskier. The US knows it, and Vlad knows it, and they both know that the other knows it. So at this point, it is basically the blazing saddle scenario. One more move, and baby Putin gets it. So yes, Putin is awful and deserves to be hung by his thumbs, shall we say. But without him now, Russia is a totally failed state, not just a halfway one, and the US won't like that. So my guess is that something will be figured out at the last moment. Something will go. Maybe Putin will go? Not likely, but possible. And if so, who would come in? In my view, there are only three possibilities. Maybe four, but no, let's keep it to three. First is the former head of the FSB, the Russian spook organization, and current secretary of the Russian Security Council, Nikolai Patrushev. The British spooks think it would be him, but Patrushev has little support and was also poisoned once already. So if he does get in, it won't be for long. And no, it will not be Dmitry Medvedev either, who plays Robin to Putin's Batman. He is now deputy chairman of the Russian National Security Council, a job that Vlad himself once held, by the way. Why not Medvedev? Because he's too big an idiot, and everybody knows it. He spoke once about Russia's men in black who control extraterrestrial aliens in Russia. No one except Vlad supports him. The first dark horse candidate, in my opinion, is Alexei Dumin, now governor of the Tula Oblast, kind of a Russian province. He was once personal guard of Vladimir and saved him from a bear by shooting in the air. Vlad liked that. He's sentimental about animals, don't know about people. And he promoted Dumin. Since then, Dumin has kept his nose clean, except for once messing up by not being able to stop Ukrainian attacks on ammunition plants in his backyard. But this probably saved him from seeming too competent, which minimized his risk of falling from a helicopter. That's what happened to Alexander Lebed, a charismatic general who had his eye on Putin's job. He fell off a helicopter, or falling off a cliff, which is what happened to Yevgeny Zinitchev, Minister of Emergency Services, who was too good at his job, so off the cliff he went. Who then is another candidate to lead Russia post-Putin? Although very low likelihood, I think is none other than Putin's second Tatar woman, Elvira Sahib-Zadovna Nabulina, the Russian central banker. She is terrific at her job, widely respected in the West too, and recently threatened to resign for the second time because of Ukraine. No one knows if she did resign or not, but she's the only one who could get the West to relax sanctions pronto if he's going to be even closer to in charge. Will she be accepted? But the question is, will she be accepted to the Siloviki, the Russian thugs who run the Russian deep state? Maybe, because the standard of living has been going down as well as their life expectancy. If any one of the Siloviki becomes Tsar, including Patrushev, the others would likely kill him. Nabulina may be the only default choice who will stay unkilled. Also, there are rumors she is a trustee of Vlad's private holding companies in Bank Sigma in Liechtenstein, where he allegedly keeps some of his money, so she can sort of guarantee him access to his money in retirement, just as Putin himself did to Yeltsin. But wait a minute. Why did I say second Tatar woman? Who is the first? Why, none other than Irina Kabayeva, Putin's preferred mistress and mother of two, some say three of his children, who is now living in Switzerland. Her father, by the way, is a bigwig in Tatarstan, and she herself is said to be the most flexible gymnast in Russia and also control 2 or 3 companies that Vlad begat. No, her father is not even close to the list, nor is Prigozhin, chief and owner of the Wagner Group, Putin's mercenaries. Yes, Prigo owns the Wagner private army on paper, but the army is more loyal to Vlad than to him. To come down to the chase, will the current threat of World War III come to pass, or will Putin go? No one knows. But at a certain point, either the West and Putin will come to an understanding, or the Russian Siloviki will likely push forward whoever is acceptable to the West, and we can also keep them in kasha and kvas and vodka. In other words, probably no World War III yet. Putin's threat are probably just hint he's willing to deal. Please come talk to me. Or, as Russian doctrine says it, escalate so as to de-escalate. So finally, is the market a buy? Who knows? As usual, my opinion is to go stock by stock, sleuthing companies deeply, trying to understand their top people, to see who can be the next in line if the CEO goes, just as well as when you try to understand the top people in any country whose decisions you are trying to decipher. Yes, it's all about people, whether in countries or in companies. But people being people, they can always surprise you, as can the market. But here, by all sign, probably no World War III yet. I said probably. That's all for today. Let me know below if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel, forward it to all your friends who they subscribe to, and buy my book, The Sleuth Investor, and write an Amazon review about it. I'll see you next time. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching.